What were the positives and maybe downs a little bit in the back end? And obviously threw for a lot of yards, but it seemed like you guys kept them.
I think the positives from Saturday were just the response. The response from the guys dealing with some adversity. Early in the game, back and forth, and also coming out of the half and being in a dogfight. I think they responded, and I was really proud to see, even through some of the ups and downs and highs and lows of the game, it really just stayed even keel. The conversation, the adjustments on the sideline, they were as good as everywhere I've been, and got a really good group that this is what we practice for, to be in those dogfights in the fourth quarter.
Does that, with third quarterback, he never made a start on the road. He'd only really played one game. How much did you learn about him in game and just the challenge he presented? Because he was pretty efficient.
I'll tell you what, every week, right, that the challenge is first in-house, how do we prepare and what's our focus? But, whoever rolls in that stadium, we know that we're going to get their best. And even though it was like his first start in this environment, he's a good player. They've got a good team and supporting cast around him. So we knew it was going to be a challenge. But as always, the biggest challenge is, how do we, one, take the field, and if things happen, how do we respond? It's that you got that Mike Tyson quote about being punched in the face. It's like everybody has a plan. But for us, we have a great plan. We roll into the game and we can adjust. We monitor and adjust.
So speaking of what you said, the stadium, the environment.
Yes.
So this was the home. That was a great experience. How much does that play into success? And then try to translate that to going on the road, and how do you get your guys ready?
Absolutely. I think it's a huge advantage for us, especially when we get in those critical situations, third down, late there in the game, in the 2-minute situation, and even in the overtime. I think our students and our fans do a great job of just creating, chaos for the offense to have to process and deal with. You see it in procedure penalties. You see guys getting misaligned. They're trying to communicate. They don't have the proper hand signals. Sometimes guys can get out of position, but we use that to our advantage when we're home. And then when we're on the road, man, we try to bring the same juice. We've got to be the chaos. We've got to be the storm. And so, again, I think our guys do a good job at weathering the storm, but also understanding that when we take this show on the road, we've got to be it.
Right. If I could follow up, even when it gets to those situations and things kind of get out of control, what's your process of bringing them back in, getting people locked back in, and staying focused?
Just communication, having a conversation, right? Every play has a life of its own, and good play, bad play, next play. And within those plays, making sure that we're communicating. So we've got a system of both verbal and nonverbal communication, right? And so if there's ever a breakdown on a play, we can always track it back to somebody didn't say or do something in that communication chain. And so really just getting the guys over, not necessarily focused on the outcome of the play, but more about what happened during the play that we could improve on. That process of communicating, making sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay. Thanks so much.
When you mentioned the communication side of things,
yes.
when Malik was gone in that second quarter, it seemed like that was an area you guys maybe took a hit. I'm wondering how important he is to the secondary, as a leader.
Absolutely, he's huge. He's the heartbeat of our room. He's our energy. He kind of makes it go. He's done a phenomenal job leading the room, both by example and his words. And I think we've got some young guys and guys that are stepping into a new role that they know what to do, they know how to do it. Maybe not as confident and loud right now as Malik is, but they can definitely do it. But Malik is our heartbeat.
You mentioned about the miscommunication.
Yes.
There was obviously a couple points in that game where there was some, I don't know if it was miscommunication, lack of communication, or just misinterpretation of some things. I'm wondering, how do you, I guess, what happened in a couple of those plays? I'm thinking the one touchdown in the corner where Jordan was kind of trying to motion out a little bit to the guys, and they got caught up a little bit.
Yeah,
but also, how do you avoid those guys from finger pointing?
Well, I think it starts pre-motion, pre-shift, right? We harp on that in practice about who can move, and again, we talk about process, everybody does, but in how we install our defense, our guys know it starts first and foremost with the down and distance in the situation, but then moving from there to formation and how guys can move within that formation. And so it really starts with identifying who can move, and then from there talking about when that happens, what do we do? And so sometimes, depending on the pace and depending on the situation, that part of the communication is a little lacking. But again, that's where we go back to, okay, what happened from the very beginning? Tell me what we missed, where we can improve, and moving on to the next play.
That's one of those things too, when you have that in a game like that, that's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
For the next week, I would think.
Oh yeah, and you hear them out there even in practice, talking about, hey, remember this happened in this game, remember in practice, remember during camp, we saw this shift, this adjustment, remember we talked through it this way. And we've got a veteran group that they do a great job of coaching themselves and correcting themselves. And so for me, my question is always what happened? If they can tell me what happened, right, we can work through the hows and the adjustments. And again, they do a great job understanding all that goes into that.
The what happened side of things. John Boyer was here yesterday talking to us about the offense and how he works with Aiden, and he mentioned like going through what Aiden sees, kind of putting himself in his shoes, coaching. Is that with this coaching staff kind of the way you guys operate?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to find out, you know, from A to Z, like how this
Yes.
happened.
Yeah, we believe that a smarter player is a better player, right? And so part of teaching and coaching and developing these young people is figuring out how they learn, right? And so we give them a clear way to learn, a process to learn. You know, the game of football hadn't changed in 100 years, so we're still teaching cover 2 and cover 3 like everybody else, but making sure the guys understand the why of what we're doing and why we're calling it. And then situationally, how that may change, right? We play coverages differently depending on where they put the ball. And we also react to certain plays differently depending on where they put the ball. So just being able to start from the foundation of why we're doing what we're doing, and then also understanding how guys learn, trying to speak to all those.
What do you think, James, about Amore in start of the season? How nice is it to have a guy where you don't have a Nakai, but you can throw Amore in and
Oh man, unbelievable. Yeah, it's he's been great. I mean, he's one of our field generals. I call him Coach Skis sometimes lovingly, just because he gets it. He can zoom out and get the 10,000-foot view of the defense, of the call, what we're trying to get done schematically. But then he can really focus in and hone in on his job and his detail. And I think it's helped him, right? He's put himself in position to make some plays. And there are some plays out there Saturday that he wish he had back, you know, but that's kind of always how it is, right? You make 2 and then you'll give up 2, and I'm like, well, you got to get 1 more. We got to get to the plus side. So, and I think the other thing too, he's done a great job at just, you know, we talk about that storm, weathering the storm, right? One play at a time, good play or bad play, just learning something from every single play and applying it to the next.
He games like Boston College usually come down to 1 or 2 plays. He made one of those plays on that 2-point
did.
conversion. How happy does that make you as a coach?
Oh man, it's life, right? Like he played 73 snaps, and if you look at it, you can nitpick him and break him down technique-wise. You know, he may have given up a couple plays. There was a touchdown earlier in the game that he could have directly impacted, right? And so in that moment, he may get down on himself. A player gets down, but I'm like, dude, it's not about that last one. It's about the next one, right? It's about that play 73 where we need you to be at your best and focused and locked in on your technique. And he answered the call. And so I love those moments, because that's why I coach, right? Because, hey, listen, you may have made 10 really good plays, but the last play, you fell short. And what do you learn from that, right? But for him, fortunately, it was the other way around. He made a lot of plays, he missed a few plays, but that last one was the one that really counted.
With him, yeah, obviously Nakai is going to come back at some point.
Yes.
What's the future role for Amore? I mean, does he move down into the nickel, and kind of talk also about what Ade has done?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, he's going to play. You know, I think our job as coaches is to figure out, you know, who the best 11 are going to be, and then also who the backups behind them, and roll. And I think Coach Rossi's done a great job within this defense of packaging. You know, there'll be times when you look out and there'll be 5 of us out there. You know, there'll be 6 of us out there. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to find a way to get the guys on the field that we feel like can help us win football games. And my problem as the coach for the nickels and the safeties, I've got a lot of guys in the room that can play. And so it's like my biggest problem during the week is finding enough reps for them in practice, you know, but they treat them all like gold. You know, you'll see guys fighting over like, coach, am I up next? And like, no, you got 1 more play, chomping at the bit. But that's my biggest challenge during the week, is trying to find enough reps for them in practice so they feel like, hey, I'm ready to rock and roll during the game.
He did rep though some at nickel.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's some different things we do with him, and you know, Ade moves around a little bit. You know, we got a couple little packages that we put guys in positions to be effective on the defense.
Can you talk about
Coach, is it fair to say that as important as the safety position is, it's not highlighted as much as other positions? And if so, if you can agree with that, if that's the case, can you say why that may be?
No, you know, I think it's we're just 1/11th, right? I mean, we're just one part of the bigger whole, and so I think our job obviously is really important. I tell the guys we're like the quarterbacks of the defense, right? But you're not necessarily going to be the tip of the spear. You're not always going to be at the point of making a play or point of impact. But how you see the picture and communicate and get guys lined up can definitely influence how the play turns out. And so,
With that job description, what kind of profile do you have to give for the kind of players who can really buy into that?
how much time you got?
All right, I get it.
No, a lot, but I think it's smart, you know, physical, fast, tackling safeties, you know, guys that have a lot of range, position flexibility. You know, I'm always going after guys that are multiple sports, multiple positions, because they like grew up like us. They're just outside playing, right? And so when you throw things at them that might be new conceptually, they get it. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that time playing with Johnny in the street. You know, we're playing cover 2. So I just want guys that kind of just they're ballers, you know, but smart. They can process and you know, put it in the grass.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
With Sarmori and his story and what he's
Yes.
gone through, when you talk about the mental resilience to make a play, I mean, to see him be in the position where he can be successful and just play football and
Absolutely.
do that, I mean, how gratifying as a coach is it to see that? I know you recently joined the staff.
Right. No, it is. I mean, I think the work for us is just making sure that they're at their best, right? And we focus a lot on what they do in the grass, but it's more than that. It's more than football has always been and always will be. And for him, he's done a great job at prioritizing the things in his life, right? And so I think that helps him avoid the chaotic, you know, moments that life throws at us sometimes, right? And sometimes the overwhelming feelings that can bring. He just prioritizes it. Hey, this is step A, step B, step C, and just roll through it. And so really proud of how he's handled himself. And there's a direct correlation, right? Like how he handles himself off the field and with his family, it's showing up on the football field. And so I love seeing him have success.
Could you imagine being his age and having that
Absolutely
responsibility?
not. Absolutely not. I think I tell him all the time how, you know, grateful I am for him, how proud I am of him, and how much I'm learning from him, because I couldn't have done what he's done at that age.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.